Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are looking into something, well, kind of wild. What happens when a system for taxing thoughts falls apart?
It's really interesting that this idea plays on fears we have in the real world,
Yeah.
like about control and being watched, even how our thoughts could be turned into cash.
Yeah, exactly. So picture this. The BIIDC, the Bureau of Interdimensional Intellectual Debt Collection.
Itchy.
Right. Super bureaucratic, and they're all about measuring and taxing every single thought, like metaphysical mischief fines for just daydreaming, or recursive inquiry penalties, for when you just ask too many questions.
It does sound a little ridiculous, right? But then it gets even weirder. They have this whole system based on thought units, tooth cells.
Yeah.
And they were, well, just as fuzzy as they sound.
Oh, yeah. In the stuff we read for this, people were doing crazy things to dodge those thought taxes, like marrying robots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, even sending the debt to their pets. And time travel loopholes, forget about it.
Really shows how hard it is to measure something like thinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Human thought, it's just so complex. But hang on, because their thought-taxing empire didn't last forever, something huge happened. Their whole simulated reality shifted. It totally upended how they did things.
Like a forced-to-system upgrade.
Exactly. They got this thing called an interdimensional notice of simulation progression. Basically, their reality got an update.
Makes you wonder who's running the simulation.
Right. And this update had two big, scientific frameworks totally flipped their world upside down.
Okay, so frameworks sounds complicated.
Yeah, a bit. But we can break it down. First one's called Integrated Information Theory, or IIT.
IIT, right.
So think about it. Scientists have been trying to figure out how to measure consciousness forever. IIT is one way to actually quantify it using math. So not just saying if someone is conscious, but how are you too?
Yeah, exactly. IIT says that more integrated information means more consciousness. This was a direct challenge to those TUs the BIIDC used. Showed that consciousness is about how things connect, not just the number of thoughts.
So using TUs to measure consciousness is measuring how deep a conversation is just by counting the words.
A perfect analogy. Misses all the nuance, the back and forth. Now, the second one that really shook things up, the free energy principle, FEP.
Okay, FEP, what's the deal with that one?
So FEP says that all biological systems, including brains, are always trying to minimize surprise. They do this by aligning their internal models with the outside world. You check the weather before heading out, right? You learn from mistakes. That's FEP in action.
So it's not about knowing everything. It's about always adjusting and improving how we understand the world.
You got it. Intelligence is a prediction machine, always making predictions and then updating based on what happens.
And this was huge for the BIIDC, wasn't it? They couldn't just sit back and react to thoughts anymore. They had to anticipate, adapt,
Predictive cognitive modeling. You nailed it. Imagine your phone knew your habits so well, it predicted what you needed before you even asked. That's kind of what the BIIDC had to do, but on a massive scale, not just slapping on fines after the fact. It was about understanding how thoughts and actions might play out.
So they went from thought police to thought traffic control, big shift. And what about their authority? No more making stuff up as they went along, right?
Totally. They had to ditch their contradictions, their weird rules. They became more like facilitators in this super complex web of intelligence. And that's where Anya's story comes in. She's a network weaver living in this new world.
Anya, a network weaver. So what's that exactly?
Her story shows just how much the BIIDC changed. Imagine a world where feelings and experiences aren't just personal. They flow between everyone in a collective consciousness. The source material we looked at described it like bioluminescent rivers flowing beneath the skin of reality, emotions passing between people like some energy current.
Whoa. Beautiful, but kind of overwhelming, right? What challenges did Anya face in this world?
At first, she was totally swamped by everyone's emotions, especially the grief. Trying to process her own pain plus everyone else's, it was tough. At first, she tried to control it all, to turn down the negative feelings, which is a human reaction to pain.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But trying to control these interconnected emotions, that probably didn't work out too well. I mean, the BIIDC tried controlling thoughts, and look what happened to them.
You're right. Totally pointless. Anya's big change happened when she realized that fighting the flow only made things worse.
Okay, so last we left off, Anya, our network weaver, was figuring out a world where emotions are like bioluminescent rivers. Beautiful image. But I gotta ask, if she can feel everyone else's joy and pain, wouldn't that be super intense?
It was, especially at first. The stuff we read really emphasized how Anya struggled with feeling all the collective grief, like really acutely. Her first instinct, was to control it, to dampen those negative emotions.
I can see that. Makes sense. But I'm guessing trying to shut out those feelings, it didn't really work. Like trying to swim against a current instead of with it.
You got it. And that's where her own past traumas come in. Anya's journey of healing, it actually became the foundation for her as a network weaver. By facing her own pain, she developed this deep well of empathy.
So her personal struggles helped her connect with others on like a deeper level. That's pretty powerful.
It is. What we're seeing in these sources is that turning personal pain into a source of healing for everyone, that's key in this interconnected future. It's about recognizing that our experiences, even the bad ones, they can help us understand each other better.
It's like reframing suffering, not something to avoid at all costs, but as a way to gain wisdom, to connect.
Exactly. Anya's story shows how our individual healing can contribute to the well-being of the whole. She learned to use her experiences to help others handle those intense shared emotions, offer guidance and support.
Okay, starting to get the whole network weaver thing, but what does that actually look like? What do they do?
Think of them as facilitators, like mediators, guides even, helping people adapt to this new reality, both individually and as a group. They might offer techniques for processing strong emotions, or create spaces for collective reflection, healing, even help resolve conflicts that pop up within the network.
So therapists for the interconnected mind, helping people wrap their heads around this whole new way of experiencing things.
That's a good way to put it. But it's bigger than just individual counseling. They're also helping to maintain a sense of balance, harmony within the collective consciousness.
Balance and harmony. Sounds like a tall order. How do they even approach that?
Well, it's not about controlling the flow of emotions, right? It's about building resilience, both personally and as a group.
Resilience keeps coming up. Anya needed it to handle the shared emotions. The BIIDC failed because they couldn't adapt.
Exactly. And it makes sense when you think about it. In a world where we're so connected, being able to bounce back from tough stuff, to adjust to change, to process difficult emotions without getting overwhelmed, it becomes crucial.
It's kind of like what we see with social media today. All those amplified emotions, misinformation spreading, the lines between our inner and outer worlds blurring. Anya's world takes that to the next level.
You're right on the money. The parallels are definitely there. And Anya's story, it gives us some clues about how to navigate this increasingly interconnected future. Like, think about empathy. It's not just a nice thing to have. It's essential.
It makes you wonder, are we doing enough to cultivate empathy? Are we ready for a future where what we do individually has even bigger ripple effects on everyone else?
That's the big question, isn't it? Anya's story makes us really think about that. Her world highlights how important it is to realize that our choices, how we feel, what we do, it all deeply impacts the collective.
So it's not just about being nice or avoiding negativity. It's about actively trying to make things better for everyone, like we're all tending the same garden.
Beautiful analogy. Reminds us that we each have a role to play in creating a harmonious and resilient future. But let's be real. Not everyone's going to jump on board with this shared responsibility thing. There will always be those who try to take advantage, spread negativity, or just cause chaos.
It's true. Look what happened with the BIIDC. Their control freak ways backfired big time. So how do we protect against those who might abuse a system based on shared emotions, on this interconnectedness?
That's where trust comes in. Anya's story shows how important it is to trust in the collective's ability to heal, to grow, to adapt, to trust that new systems will emerge that encourage ethical behavior.
Trust. That's asking a lot these days, don't you think? Especially with all the negativity and division we see everywhere.
It is. But it's also something we can actively work on. It starts with us, with our own actions. Being aware of our impact, choosing to connect and contribute in positive ways, and promoting understanding and empathy when we interact with others.
So it's about making conscious choices, even little ones, that help build a more positive and resilient world, not waiting for some big tech fix or a benevolent AI to swoop in and save the day.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we're all in this together, whether we want to be or not, and that our individual choices, they matter more than we think.
This is a lot to take in. So to wrap up this part of our exploration, let's go back to the BIIDC's downfall. It feels like a cautionary tale. What lessons can we learn from their mistakes?
Their rigid control, it completely backfired. It shows how important adaptability, transparency, and ethical systems are in a world that never stops changing. Their inability to adapt highlights the need to embrace change, to foster resilience, and to really understand how interconnected we are. And this leads us to a crucial question for everyone listening. Are you ready for a future where your emotions and experiences are inseparable from the collective?
So we're back and diving deeper into this future where emotions and experiences are all shared. We've seen the BIIDC crash and burn, network weavers like Anya emerge. Resilience and empathy, they seem key in this interconnected world. But it makes me wonder, are we really ready for a reality where our inner worlds are so intertwined?
It's a big question that even the stuff we read for this deep dive grapples with. Some experts think this level of connection could lead to a more compassionate, harmonious society. But others worry about, manipulation, groupthink, losing our individuality.
And a two-sided coin, right? Shared understanding on one side, fear of getting lost in the crowd on the other.
Good way to put it. Reminds us there are no easy answers when it comes to the future. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It all boils down to what kind of future we actually want.
It's like Anya's story is holding a mirror up to us. In her world, people know their emotions can impact others, literally. That's a huge responsibility. Can we even handle that kind of awareness, that self-control?
It's definitely a challenge. But Anya's journey gives us some hints. Remember, she struggled at first with all those shared emotions, especially the grief. But she learned to handle it. Embracing vulnerability, practicing empathy, trusting that the collective can heal itself.
So it's not about becoming emotionless robots or trying to control everything, right? It's about figuring out how to be individuals and part of something bigger. It's almost like a spiritual practice.
Interesting perspective. It does emphasize how important it is to have practices that help us find balance, build resilience within ourselves, mindfulness, compassion, meditation, even just spending time in nature. Those can help us navigate a world where we're all so connected.
It's about staying grounded, developing our own internal compass so we can contribute to the collective without losing ourselves.
Exactly. Individual well-being and collective well-being, they're not separate. They're deeply connected. When we take care of ourselves, we're better able to help others. And when we feel connected to something bigger, it gives our lives meaning, purpose.
It's a give and take, right? Like a symbiotic relationship, the individual and the collective supporting each other.
Well said. But let's be real. We're not all going to become enlightened network weavers overnight. There will be bumps in the road, doubts, setbacks. The BIIDC story is a reminder of that.
Yeah. Their control freak ways totally blew up in their faces. And it shows how we need systems that can adapt, that are transparent, accountable, systems that encourage ethical behavior and promote the well-being of everyone.
Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
How do we design systems for this interconnected future? How do we balance individual freedom with responsibility to the group? How do we foster trust when the world feels so divided?
Big questions. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all. But I keep thinking about Anya. She didn't start out trying to save the world. She just focused on her own healing, on growing, on connecting. And in doing that, she became a catalyst for positive change.
Powerful reminder that even small actions can have a big impact. We don't need all the answers. We don't need to be perfect. We just have to be willing to show up, to connect, to contribute however we can.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. In a world where our thoughts, emotions, and experiences are all woven together, what role will you choose to play? Will you be a force for connection, for compassion? Will you help build collective resilience? Or will you give in to fear and isolation? The choice, as always, is yours. Thanks for joining us on this exploration. Until next time, keep diving deep. And remember, even small ripples can create big waves.